Hello everyone, I'm here to do yet another tag. I saw this again from Leo in A Little Book Live, and this tag was originally created by Rick McDonald. I'll put all the links below, and it's the 10 years 10 books tag. So the basic idea is that you look at the books you read in the last 10 years and you choose the ones that impacted you the most or that you want to share and say. This was really hard because there were some years that I read some of my favorite books 2 in 1 year or something, and in those cases I decided to go to the, let's say, less known book from the 2 or 3 that I was considering. So yeah, just have that into account, but it was really hard to narrow it down. So with that, let's start with 2010. And in 2010, the book that I read that impacted me the most was 1984 by George Orwell. This is a very well-known novel. It basically talks about absolutism and the voyeurism of society. So it's a dystopian novel in which we follow a man that works rewriting the history to fit the current government's narrative, and it's a government that has absolute power over their citizens, more or less. So they see everything they do and they control everything they see and do, who they talk to, and so on. And this character meets a woman that is in the resistance, and the book goes from there. So yeah, it is a very interesting book. It's a classic for a reason, and I really enjoyed it. At the time I read it, it was mind-blowing for me, so that's why it's in this list. In 2011, it's something that probably most people will not have heard about. I'm not sure it's available in English, but the English translation of the title will be something like Nauru, the Devastated Island, How Capitalism Destroyed the Richest Country in the World. And this is about Nauru, the island and country of Nauru, which is in the Pacific. And Nauru made ridiculous amounts of money at some point selling basically bird poo. So they have a lot of bird life, and the poo, like the excrements of the birds, is very valuable to create fertilizers for agriculture. So they made ridiculous amounts of money selling that excrement from the birds. But then if you go to Nauru nowadays, it's not a rich country, and there are a lot of problems in that society, and this book looks at how that happened and what can be done about it. And I found it really interesting. I still remember a lot of the points and the things that were told in that book, even like 9-10 years after I read it. So it clearly made a big impact on me, and I think it's a really good book if you can find it. Then in 2012 was the year I found out about Eduardo Galeano, and the first book I read from him was The Open Veins of Latin America, 5 Centuries of the Pillage of a Continent. And basically it does what it says. It's a non-fiction book about when the Spanish arrived in Latin America and what happened after that, and how it's still the fact that Spanish people have so much control over the continent and how does work, and yeah, a lot of interesting facts about that dynamic. What I like the most about Eduardo Galeano is that he's very sarcastic and he's very funny, very, very funny. So even if you're reading a non-fiction book, and most of his books are non-fiction, it just reads like really funny fiction. It's so easy to read and it's so informative, and I just love him, and I recommend it for everyone to read. Then in 2013, I read Flatland but A Romance of Many Dimensions by Edwin Abbott. And this book is, maybe I have heard some criticism about the representation of women and societal things that we care about right now, but this book is quite old, and I just found it super interesting to read about how these different dimensions interact. So it's a very short book, and it talks about this circle and triangles, and as if they were people, and then there's one day this sphere that comes into the picture, and everyone is blown by the fact that it has 3 dimensions and not 2. And I don't know, maybe it's a very geeky book to read, and you have to be into math and geometry to appreciate, but I did appreciate it, and I think it was really funny, and a really new concept that I haven't seen before, and I haven't seen since. So yeah, this one needs caution, but I still recommend it. And then in 2014, I read the book that nowadays I consider probably my favorite book, and that is The Wizard of the Crow by Ngugi wa Thiongo. This one is also very funny and sarcastic, and it takes place in an imaginary African country, but it's most likely Kenya, because the author is Kenyan, and it fits with the time period that it's happening, how things were in Kenya. And it basically follows this man that he just lives a normal life, but at some point there was a police riot, not a riot, like they were trying to just disperse people. So he ran away from the police because he didn't want to be in the middle of the riot, and he hid into this wizard, like this witch doctor quarters. And while he was there were some people that came in and thought that he was the witch doctor and asked for advice, and he gave good advice just out of logic, but people were so impressed that they thought, he must be a witch doctor because these things that he said work. So his fame grows and grows, and then he gets involved into the politics of the time, and it just has so many commentaries about African culture and whiteness and blackness and colonialism. And I just think it's a work of art. It's beautiful, and if you like magical realism, and you like sarcasm, and you're interested in African politics, I really recommend. I need to reread this because I haven't reread it since I read it the first time. It's quite a chunky book. I think it's 750 pages or so. But I need to reread this because it's amazing. Then in 2015, I read A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, and this is a small essay about what it means to be a woman in the Victorian era, and how things that we don't really think about, like having a room to develop your talents, might affect your outputs and the opportunities you have in life. So this is a classic again of feminist literature, and it is a classic for a reason. So I'll really recommend. And if you're scared of Virginia Woolf because she has some really convoluted books, this is a good place to start, I would say. Then in 2016, I read another of my favorite books, I would say, and that is Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And this is a YouTube darling, a booktube darling, and again, for a reason. This tells the story of, I don't remember the name, but of a Nigerian woman that emigrates to the US and the difficulties she finds there, and how she becomes aware of her race for the first time when she's in America, because obviously in Nigeria most people are black, so you don't really have that tension. And it talks about race, it talks about the difference between being African American and African, about colonialism again, about love as well, a little bit, but I really recommend this if you haven't read it yet. And then 2017 I read The Shock Doctrine, The Rise of a Disaster Capitalism by Naomi Klein. Naomi Klein is very well known for her political analysis of events, and this is the first book I read from her. I recommend all of her books. She's amazing, especially the last ones about climate change are really good. But in this book in particular, she talks about how governments use disasters to pass things that would not be acceptable otherwise. And I think that's very timely for the time we are living, because I think that everyone is so concentrated in the immediate crisis of the coronavirus that we are not thinking about other things that are happening, and we don't know how to deal with them. So this book talks about that, about how people use shocks, and she uses examples from all over the world. For example, how they changed the political system in Chile when Pinochet came to power, how Hurricane Katrina changed the dynamics in that city, not necessarily for the better. And it follows several of these things, and it poses the question of what can we do about it, and does it work, does it not work? And I think it's a very important book, and I think it's a very important book especially right now. So I will recommend it for everybody. The next year it's 2018, and in that year I read Flight to Canada by Ishmael Reed, and this is I believe it was written in the 70s. Ishmael Reed was actually a contemporary of James Baldwin, and this book is again hilarious. It is set sort of in the 1800s, around the Civil War in the US, but not really, because they do have technology from the 70s, which was the contemporary at the time this was written. So it looks at how silly it would be to have slavery when we have flights and telephones and health insurance and all these little things. And it does it through it follows one of the slaves in the South that travels and tries to escape to Canada from the slavery, and that's the premise, but it basically just shows how nonsensical it would be to have slavery right now, or 30-40 years ago. So yeah, I highly recommend. It's a very small book, and it's very funny and very easy to read, so please pick that up if you're interested. And then 2019, last year, I couldn't choose anything else but The Overstory by Richard Powers. This again made it to my favorite books of all time. It's just beautiful. It follows 12 people and their connection to trees and how they interconnect with each other and with trees. So it always has trees as the main focus of the story, and I just loved it, and it's amazing, and everyone should read it. So yeah, The Overstory, it's my favorite book of last year. So yeah, that was the tag. I hope you enjoyed and you found some books that you're interested in. I tried to mix and match some that I couldn't leave out because they are just my favorite, and some that are a little bit less known. so that you can find something interesting. And now it's the time to tag people, so I would want to tag some people. The first one is Charles Heathcote. I have been following his channel and I really love it, so I hope he can do it. The next one is Heidi from Reading Life, and I would also like to tag Camille from What Camille Reads. So I hope they do it, and of course if you have seen this video and you want to do it, please do it. I would love to find more interesting books from all of you. So yeah, that was a tag. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're sane, safe and healthy, and please comment down below if you have read any of these books or you're interested in any of them and what your favorite books are. Talk to you in the comments and see you later. Bye!